Thank you for joining us for the Utah Energy Code Lunch and Learn training presented by Dominion Energy and Rocky Mountain Power. My name is Katie Milliken, and I'm here on behalf of the Governor's Office of Energy and Development. I'd like to welcome you to our free Lunch and Learn series. Today's training topic is on residential utility program updates and how incentives can be utilized to help offset construction costs. A couple of announcements before we get started. Keep in mind this is being live streamed and recorded. If you want to ask a question, we have a microphone we'll send around. We will take a break at noon to provide lunch to those attending in person. For those online, we'll take a break for about 10 minutes and return at 12:10. Today's presentation is posted on the live stream page of our website, utahenergycode.com. Please silence your phones. If you need to take a call, please do so in the hallway. Lastly, these trainings would not be possible without our partners like Salt Lake Community College's Energy Management Program that offers degrees and certifications in building automation, lighting design, and HVAC, in addition to energy management. Now I'd like to invite Paul Jones, Program Manager of SLC's Energy Management Program, who helps put on these trainings to explain certifications and programs they offer.
Thank you, Katie. The great management theorist Peter Drucker basically invented strategies to say this. The community college was actually designed to educate technologists who have both needed theoretical knowledge and the manual skill. On this, I am convinced rests both the still huge productivity advantage of the American economy and the American ability to create almost overnight new and different industries. Salt Lake Community College exists to fill that role for us here on the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake County. And so I want to just introduce the Energy Institute a little bit and talk about why that's such an advantage not only to you but to our economy as a whole. The Energy Institute is an award-winning program here at Salt Lake Community College that provides a fast track to careers or energy advancement in the building, engineering facilities, HVAC, lighting, and clean energy industries. All of our instructors are highly qualified professionals currently working in their respective fields, and our curriculum is developed by industry, ensuring that the content is both current and relevant. Whether you've been thinking about going back to school to boost your technical skills and resume, or you're looking for training opportunities for your employees, the Energy Institute has a wide variety of programs offered in flexible formats. And here's what's coming up here in January. First of all, enrollment is open for the Energy Management AAS degree, which covers residential, commercial, and industrial energy efficiency, including HVAC, lighting, automation and controls, and financial analysis of energy investments. We're proud of our more than 200 plus alumni working in Utah and across the country that have started in the program here in the last 10 years and are now working here and across the country to save energy and to save money. Our solar certificates are offered twice a year. It only takes 2 courses to complete a certificate in solar sales and 1 additional course for a certificate in solar installation. The majority of the coursework is online, but we also have an in-person training that takes place in our brand new solar training yard at West Point up by the airport. This certificate prepares students to take the NAB CEP exams. Third offering, our accounting and sales certificate is 2 classes and covers the business case for energy efficiency, helping you to get your new energy projects approved and funded. And finally, we're excited to announce our newest certificate program designed to help launch careers in the rapidly growing field of building automation. The first level certificate covers the fundamentals of the building automation industry, advanced electrical concepts and devices, as well as controls theory. Additionally, we offer certificates in energy efficient lighting, HVAC, and energy modeling. To learn about any or all of this, either come see me or Alyssa, or check our website, slcc.edu/energy. And then we have the flyers there on the side as well.
Thanks, Paul. First up today, we're going to have Chris Anjewierden talk about Dominion Energy incentives.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Chris Anjewierden. as Katie said. And I just want to give a quick presentation on the updates for the year 2020 on the Therm-Wise incentive program. So I'll give a quick overview of the program and then kind of highlight some of the most important changes that have been made this year. So the Therm-Wise incentive program breaks down into a couple different categories. The first of which is the appliance rebates. So the appliance rebates are for any homeowners who purchase any sort of energy efficient equipment that meets a certain set of criteria. And there's all sorts of equipment that can go through this program, such as smart thermostats, water heaters, whether they be gas storage or tankless or condensing water heaters, or solar assisted gas water heaters, anything that any water heater that uses gas, or this program also incentivizes gas furnaces, residential boilers, direct vent gas fireplates. There's a number of things that can go through the appliance program. Some of the important changes that have been made this year is that for the gas furnaces, they eliminated the EC motor requirement. So previously, there were these two tiers, and each of them required that the furnace have an EC motor. So now they've gotten rid of that requirement, and the rebate has been lowered by $50 in each of those two tiers. And the reason for that is that the EC motor on the furnaces has essentially become required by code at this point. So it's no longer incentivizable. They have also, however, though, added a $50 rebate for a smart water heater controller. So this simply means that the smart water heater controller has to be installed on a gas storage water heater, and it has to have controls that can utilize a smartphone app or any sort of an online web interface. And then it has to be capable of implementing a water heating schedule to say, we normally use hot water at these times of day, so heat water at those times of day and don't heat water when you don't need them. So as long as your smart water heater controller meets all of those criteria, there's a $50 rebate available for that. So the next sort of category of the Therm-Wise incentive program are the builder rebates. So similar to the appliance program, all sorts of types of equipment are available through this program, except rather than being available to homeowners, the builder rebates are available to the builders of new homes. So you can do, again, smart thermostats, water heaters, furnaces, boilers, envelope measures. So, for example, if you have wall insulation or energy efficient windows, these are also incentivizable. And then there's also the home energy rating system, or the HERS rebates. So in the past, how this works is, how this has worked is you model your home in a software called REMrate, and you will then get a HERS score from that software. The lower your HERS score, the better, and then if you meet certain numbers with that HERS score, you get different rebates. So that's how it's worked in the past. However, there are quite significant changes to the builder program for 2020, I think for the better. So similar to the appliance program, the gas furnaces, the EC motor requirement is gone, and the rebate was lowered by $50. And the smart water heater controller is also available through the builder program. So the biggest change to this program, however, is coming through the HERS rebates. So that's being restructured entirely. So they're eliminating HERS scores, HERS rebates. So you no longer get a rebate for, having a HERS score that meets a certain number. What they're doing instead is a pay-for-performance rebate. And so how this works is, so you'll model your home in the same software that you used before. And instead of looking at the HERS score, this software will tell you how much energy your home uses compared to how much energy a standard home uses. And for every therm that your home uses less than what a regular code efficient home uses, you'll receive a $3 rebate. So generally, this rebate tends to be a little bit higher than the HERS score. Than the HERS score rebate. And so there's a maximum of $1,400 for single-family homes and $800 for multifamily homes. And there are a couple other incentives that that they're maintaining, such as the Energy Star 3.0 certification and the DOE Zero Energy Ready Home designation, which is $50 and $50 for single family, $25 for multifamily. So in the past, how it worked is you could sort of, we'll call it like an a la carte method, where you could say, okay, I have a water heater, I have a gas furnace, I have wall insulation, and I have energy efficient windows, so I'll receive a rebate for all of those. Now how it works, and perhaps like you had your HERS rebate as well, now how it'll work is, instead of doing a la carte, you can either do a la carte and say I want my water heater rebate, gas furnace rebate, and wall insulation rebate, or you can sort of go through this whole home method and receive a pay-per-performance rebate, which is, again, $3 per therm. And then in addition to that, you can receive your Energy Star 3.0 certification bonus incentive and your DOE Zero Energy Ready Home incentive, if you qualify for those. So that's sort of kind of the big takeaway from the changes in the builder program in the year 2020. So, yeah. So another part of the, question.
Okay, and go back.
Uh-huh.
If you were to max out the $1,400
Uh-huh.
on a house, can you still get the Energy Star and the Zero Energy Ready on top of it?
Repeat the question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the question was that if you max out this $1,400 bonus or this $800 for multifamily, can you still receive the $50 incentive for the Energy Star certification and the incentive for the DOE Zero Energy Ready Home designation? And the answer to that is I'm not sure. You can. Okay. So so the answer to that is you can still receive those bonuses if you max out. $1,400 and the $800 incentive, those are pretty significant gas savings for a single family and multifamily home respectively. So that allows for quite a bit of gas savings before you'd be able to max those out. Yeah. Are there any other questions on this before we move on? Yeah.
So the pay for performance, is that based on a modeling, or is it based on performance after you've lived in the home for a certain amount of time?
It is, yeah. So the question was is it based on modeling, or is it based on after you've lived in the home for a certain amount of time? And so it's all based on the model. So you'll model the home in REM rate is what the software is called, and it's all based on what the outputs of that model are. So however much energy that model says your home will save, that would be what your performance will be, or your pay-per-performance rebate will be based on. Any other questions? Okay, perfect. So the next category in the Therm-Wise incentive program is the Weatherization Program. So this allows for rebates through for measures such as replacing your windows, adding additional wall, floor, or attic insulation, air duct sealing, or duct sealing or air sealing, any sort of measure that allows you to keep your conditioned air in your home. That's what this program is for, and there are no changes to this program in the 2020 calendar year. There's also the Therm-Wise Home Energy Plan. So how this works is you can schedule an appointment with a home energy expert for $25, and they'll come in and they'll look at your home, and they will come up with a list of possible ways that you can make your home more energy efficient. Typically, these appointments take about 90 minutes for them to come and look at your home. And if you follow through on any one of the qualified measures, you'll receive that $25 back through a bill credit. Or alternatively, you can do a mail-in home energy plan, which you can fill out a form online and kind of go through and do a self-inspection of your home. And then once you mail that in, you'll get back a list of ways that you can make your home more energy efficient. And again, there are no changes to that for the, question.
To be clear, this slide and the previous slide apply to existing homes?
Correct.
Existing homes is defined as having been at least 1 year since the C of O was issued.
Yeah, exactly. So the comment made was, to be clear, the weatherization rebates and the home energy plan are for existing homes that have been built for at least 1 year. Yeah. So we've also got the business rebate program, which is for commercial buildings. Which is for commercial buildings, and you can receive rebates for boilers, furnaces, demand control ventilation, smart thermostats, energy recovery ventilators, any number of things you can receive. But these are all specifically for commercial buildings.
Question here.
Yeah. Question.
Are any of those retroactive? Let's say you install it in the RV a year and a half ago, but didn't receive an incentive for it.
No, so those are not retroactive. I believe that it has to be within 6 months of the 180 days of the purchase of the installation date, rather, is when you have to apply for that incentive by. So there's no retroactive, nothing retroactive for that. So yeah, so just some more stuff that falls under the business rebate program, green certified new buildings, weatherization. There's also a number of appliances that can go through this program, and on all of these, there's more the exact what equipment qualifies and what doesn't can be found on the Therm-Wise website. For now, I'll just give an overview. The biggest changes to the business program for the 2020 year are that, again, similar to the other programs, the EC motor requirements for the gas furnaces have been eliminated. And there's a new tier for tankless water heaters. So now, previously these two tiers existed where if you're less than 200,000 or 200 kBTUs, it has to be Energy Star qualified. And if you're above that, it has to be 82%, have a thermal efficiency of 82%. Now there's an additional tier, so if your thermal efficiency is above 90%, you can receive an even higher rebate. So that's one addition. And then perhaps the biggest modification to this program for 2020 is that for boiler incentives in the business program, the rebate will now be paid at the point of sale, so to the distributor, rather than to whoever purchases the boiler. Yeah. So the last one that we'll go over is the custom rebate program. So the custom rebate program is for anything that does not fall under one of the previous programs, but that saves energy. So some possible measures include, boiler controls or steam traps or cogeneration or high performance building envelope. Anything that saves energy but doesn't fall under one of the previous programs falls under this custom rebate program. And the rebate for this is $1 per therm saved. The biggest change to this program for the 2020 year is that they're adding what they call an analyst incentive. So to be able to know how big your rebate is for this program, you have to know exactly how much energy is being saved. So to do that, you need to have someone that knows how to figure out exactly how much energy is being saved. So Dominion is now paying an analyst incentive, which pays per unit energy saved. So it's sort of a tiered system. So let's say I have an energy efficient measure that I'm installing in my building. I'll get someone to come in and analyze exactly how much energy I'm saving, and they'll be paid based on the energy savings. So it's sort of a tiered system. So for the first 1,000 decatherms that I save, they will be paid $2.50 per decatherm. After that, for decatherms number 1,000 through 2,000, they'll be paid $2 per decatherm, and anything over that, they'll be paid $1 per decatherm with a maximum incentive of $10,000. And again, that's in addition to the rebate of $1 per therm that I would receive as the person who's implementing this energy efficient measure. So the analyst needs to fill out a pre-installation report that can be found on the Therm-Wise website, and then they'll also need to come up with a commissioning plan, just a plan to go through and verify energy savings, verify that the energy that they said was going to be saved was actually saved, and then that rebate can be paid. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. You can also refer yourself to this website where all of the specific information on what equipment qualifies, all of that can be found on the website, or you can contact them by email or by phone number. Yeah, are there any other questions? Anyone, any questions or comments? Awesome, I'll turn the time back over to Katie then.
Thanks, Chris. Next, we have Mark Eldrige with Rocky Mountain Power on updates on utility incentives.
On that side. Let's see, should I mimic Katie?
Yes.
Oh. So how's everybody doing?
Great.
You love the parking out here? Kind of fun. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about the Rocky Mountain Power New Homes Program rebates and what's available. So if you have any questions, just let's do it. All right, so as you can see, Rocky Mountain Power Watt Smart Home offers customers and contractors and builders the incentives to build higher levels of efficiency on their home. Incentives are available for multi-measures. Some incentives are available for retrofits, and new construction. Not all retrofit incentives are available for new homes at this time. They're actually working on it to get it to where they will be, hopefully in the near future. They'll consist of heat tape timers. This would be more indicative of houses up in Park City. Evaporative coolers, the whole house fans, heat pump water heaters, air source heat pumps, geothermal heat pumps. New construction, you know, the HERS, and recently we've got the standalones. That's specifically for thermostats and all the fun other measures. But as you can see, the way it kind of works on this side is we have what's called POP, the point of purchase on lighting. For you go into Home Depot, Lowe's, or one of these places, you can get the LED light bulbs at that price that they have listed. The light fixtures, as you can kind of see, we've got the ductless heat pump. It's up to a $1,300 incentive. They also have the ones that is a supplemental heat pump. That is on people that have like a bonus room or bedroom that's got hot and cold spots that they want to isolate by making it better. The ECM motor on an existing furnace is expired. That actually went into effect July 3rd of 2019, that all new furnaces manufactured already have the ECM. So that's why Therm-Wise did away with that as well. Evaporative coolers, up to 175 instant discount. That's typically at the distributor. Ground source heat pump, plus the 2,500 plus the 500 for the qualified contractor. Heat pump up to 750. The roof type, or the rooftop heat tape, and as you can see, room air conditioners, smart thermostats. That's one of the biggest ones that we're pushing, because like Therm-Wise, you can have a maximum of 2 thermostats, qualifying thermostats. Rocky Mountain Power went on the Energy Star website, so any one of theirs that's listed there is a qualifying thermostat, and you can get a maximum of 2. The whole house fan, like I mentioned, the heat pump water heater up to $550, and attic insulation on the weatherization side is still 10 cents a square foot. Any questions? Take that as a no. All right, so Rocky Mountain Power with the HERS and the smart thermostat incentives can be combined with Dominion Energy. So like I say, a maximum of 2. The new homes with the multifamily, Rocky Mountain Power under our program is 3 foundations or less. Anything 4 foundations and more goes to another program affiliate person who would do it. But it's still under the Rocky Mountain Power criteria. So multifamily, you know, it's 4 units or more. Okay, Rocky Mountain Power New Homes Program currently offers builders, developers incentives, and marketing support on building homes that are more efficient than the Utah Energy Code home. Incentives are available for new homes that obtain a qualifying ResNet HERS. We still do the ResNet HERS certification for that. There is also bonus incentives for Energy Star certifications and or standalone incentives. What that's kind of referencing is if you're doing a house that is not part of Rocky Mountain Power, but you do it in Dominion Energy, you can still submit to them for those rebates. If it is within Rocky Mountain Power and you're not doing a certification for HERS, you can still do the up to 2 on every home for those qualifying thermostats. So, high efficient air conditioning. This is one thing that we've kind of been working on, is with the new rule that went into effect with the manufacturing of ECM motors. Some of these air conditioning systems with these newer furnaces could possibly and potentially reach that 15 SEER air conditioning level to get the higher incentive, rather than putting in just a standard code 13 SEER air conditioner. So I would suggest that you look at that and maybe talk to the builders that you work with to look into that. So here's kind of what the new incentives are. If it is a HERS index of 62 down to 56, with electric heat is 350, gas heat, which is predominantly what you see, it's 175. And as you can see, there are quite a few builders that will get down to these lower levels, which is awesome. Garbette's one of them. You've all heard of the zero energy homes. That's how they get those higher levels of incentives. The standalone measures, like I made mention, with the right system, with these new furnaces, you could potentially get that $100 incentive just by explaining to the builder, here's what you can do. Any questions on this? Yes?
Are they installed by a pre-approved contractor?
They're a contractor who is listed on our website that has signed a participation agreement and a W-9 and everything, because we give them money. So yeah, as long as they're signed up with the program, they can install them, yeah.
New homes program, HVAC contractors are not required to be signed up, just the builders.
Just the builders,
Okay.
yes. Point it up. Any other questions? So this is the one thing I wanted to kind of touch base on. You can kind of see how this is broke down. You have the 62 to 56 HERS index with gas heat. This was the old slide that said with Dominion Energy it was a $100 incentive, but this will change with the $3 per therm. So as you can kind of see the breakdown of how this works. Any questions on that? That's about it.
I used that same picture of one of my slides.
What's that?
I used that same picture of one of my slides.
Yeah, it's easy peasy. Was this good? Thank you.
Oh, question.
Is anyone going to go over the multifamily, the 4 units and more?
I can do that. We'll figure it out together.
I could, but I'm not.
I wouldn't either if I only used one.
Okay, go. Thanks, Mark. And next we have Troy Preslar with Survey Testing and Services.
Thank you so much. So, as was mentioned, my name is Troy Preslar. I am with Survey and Testing Services. We are actually starting to go more by Building Science West, and we are HERS raters. We've been in the market here on the Wasatch Front for 24 years now. So people have been taking pictures of the screens and taking notes of what's going on, and that's fantastic because there is plenty of material, multiple utilities, and the utilities have different programs within each utility, and those are pretty fluid programs. They change year to year for the most part. And so we are here as HERS raters to try and make things as simple and easy as possible. Some of the measures that are eligible, you don't need a HERS rater to get. Many of them you do, and we really work as experts in not just building science and energy code compliance, but these rebate programs as well. So as I mentioned, I'm with Building Science West. There are other HERS raters in the room. Gordon and Steve are with Provident Energy. They work out of Ogden, and they've been in the business in this area for 10 plus years, I think. And Paulette McGee is there in the back. She's with, do you go by energy inspectors or just EI? Energy inspectors, and they've been in the market for a while as well. Jeff Williams is typically at these. He's not here today. He's another HERS rater that has been around for quite some time. And Chris Peterson works out of Utah County. He's been around for a long time as well. Those are kind of the main players. And when I say we do this and we do that, I'm really speaking about this whole industry, many of whom are in the room today. So where I guess I was going with the fact that we're experts on these things is the programs can be a little complicated to keep up with. And that's something that we all do. We keep up with them, we understand them, we know them. In many cases, the utilities will consult with us during the design program and ask us, is this something that will work out for your builder customers? And sometimes we say yes, sometimes we say no, but oftentimes we give input into how these programs go. So by the time they get rolled out and approved by the Public Service Commission, typically we already know about them and have an understanding of them. So my point in saying all that is, if you leave here today with questions and you're working with a HERS rater, your HERS rater is going to be able to take care of you. If you leave here and you have interest in participating in any of these programs and you're not working with a HERS rater, I would highly recommend you start working with a HERS rater. So we're here to make your lives easier. We understand these things, and we're just here to help you all out with them. Okay, so what do HERS raters do? And anyone else, I guess there's really just the kind of the three of us. I actually didn't point out, my boss, Mitch Richardson's in the back as well, but we're with the same company. So what do HERS raters do? A lot of things. Primarily in the field, we spend a lot of time doing duct blaster testing, so duct leakage testing, and blower door testing. One measures the air leakage out of a duct system. The other measures the air leakage in or out of a residential dwelling. We do energy modeling. That was mentioned as part of the programs. And part of that energy modeling generates HERS scores, which is a one-number representation of how efficient a home is relative to a home built to code in 2006, is really what that number means. And as I believe was mentioned earlier, the lower the number, the better. 100 represents a home that meets IECC 2006. 0 represents a home that uses no energy, or more realistically, generates as much energy as it uses. In this market, we are experts in and help our builders apply for rebates from the two utilities, from Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy. And from day one in 2005, when the programs started, the first thing that Rocky Mountain Power did, they got into the utility rebates a couple of years before Dominion did. The first thing they did was started recruiting HERS raters to the marketplace to facilitate the programs. And HERS raters also certify homes in above code programs. And some examples of that, probably the most common here is Energy Star for homes. You need to be a HERS rater to certify a home as Energy Star, but there are plenty of others. If I'm not mistaken, Garbett is doing DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program, and their HERS rater, Provident Energy, is providing that certification for them. So and there are plenty of others. There's LEED, there's Passive House, there's Enterprise Green, and we do those programs for a variety of the builders that we work with. So, and there are plenty of reasons to do those programs. If you want to build in Daybreak, you need to do Energy Star. There are financing advantages to doing Energy Star and Enterprise Green Communities, which is typically more for multifamily housing. But there are a variety of incentives for certifying your home in above code programs. There are also tax credit benefits to building more efficient homes, and we help plenty of our builders with those tax credits as well. Anything? Any questions before I move on? How am I doing, Steve?
I think you're good.
Okay, thank you. I just got to look for Steve to give me the approval before I move on. Okay, so duct leakage testing. I'm going to just touch on code a little bit here as well, because hitting a duct leakage threshold is code. And I've got state underlined there. There are no city or municipal codes in the state of Utah, contrary to some people's beliefs. Everything is a state code. State code is determined by our state legislature. I've had plenty of people who should know better, because they are builders, superintendents, who say, well, we build in this city, so code is not required. That is completely false. It's partially false. What they mean is code is not required for me to receive a certificate of occupancy. Complying with state code is legally required anywhere in the state of Utah. Whether your municipality requires you to follow it for C of O does not mean that you are not legally required by state law to comply. You are still legally obligated to meet all the code requirements. You're also give yourself some significant legal exposure if you are not complying with state code in building. I will just say that. So, what is the state requirement for duct leakage? I did put the threshold. So what it states is, and this changed a little bit from just last year, wasn't it? If 25% or more of the lineal feet of your duct system is outside of conditioned space, and what that typically means here is in an unconditioned attic, is the most common way that this is seen, then that duct system needs to be duct tested. And the threshold that needs to be met, in the industry, we typically just call it 7%, which it's not really 7%. It's 7 CFM per 100 square feet of conditioned floor area. And so, if you are, and typically where we see that is two-story homes. Two-story homes, oftentimes you have a duct system in the attic, typically the whole duct system in an unconditioned attic. If you are building two-story homes, you should be getting those duct systems tested. If your municipality is not requiring it, yes, you can get your C of O. You are also breaking the law. You're just not getting caught. I'll just say it that way. It's just so that is something that HERS raters do. So we'll test your ducts for you. That duct leakage number is also one of the data inputs that goes into your energy model. So we'd come out, test the ducts. That goes into the REM rate model. It's one of the inputs. Any questions on duct testing? Yeah, Brent.
So the other thing is if your air handler or furnace is outside the envelope, it's an automatic trigger also. It doesn't matter how much duct is outside if you put your air handler
Okay.
outside.
Yeah. Brent pointed out that if the air handler is outside of conditioned space, that is an automatic trigger regardless of how much of your duct work is outside conditioned space. If your air handler's out, you need to have your ducts tested. Okay. Blower door testing. We do more of this than duct testing because every home should be blower door tested. So one of two criteria need to be met for every home, every new home, and that is either the air sealing checklist, which is table 402.4.1.1, needs to be complied with, or a blower door test done. I have not seen the requirements of the air sealing checklist successfully completed ever. I'll just say that. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm just saying that if you're thinking in your head, I don't want a blower door test, I'm going to do the air sealing checklist, I will tell you that you're either cheating or you're not doing it right. It's just the reality. And Brent Ursenbach is nodding the affirmative to me. So, also, if you are doing the air sealing checklist correctly, you are spending more money than you would be on a blower door test. I thought about putting the air sealing checklist on a slide up here. It's big enough and long enough that it would just be illegible to everyone, so I pulled it back out. It is up on the Utah Energy Code.com, is it .com? Web page that is run by the same program that is putting on this training. It is a great website. I visit it often. You can have access via email to Brent's expertise on that to get code questions answered. So if you are
And if they picked up this, or if they have a copy of this, there's kind of a summary of it.
okay, so there is a flyer that is available here that does have this information on it as well. So last year, was it just last year that we were at 5 air changes per hour? Wow, time flies. Code now states that 3.5 air changes per hour is the threshold for code compliance for single-family homes. For multifamily, it has stayed at 5 air changes per hour. I will say that originally in the legislation, multifamily was slated to drop to 3.5 air changes per hour. That didn't happen because of data provided to the legislature from the HERS community here. So you're welcome. This is what a blower door looks like. It is a calibrated fan that goes into a frame. We set up in a door that is airtight, and there is a pressure gauge inside the house and a tap outside the house. We measure how much air is flowing through that fan at a specific pressure differential that is actually, it's a really small pressure differential. It ends up being about 1/4 of an inch of water column, or 50 pascals is how we state it in the industry. But it's a very small pressure differential. Again, this is required by state code. Even if your municipality will give you a C of O without doing it, you are legally required to do this, or the air sealing checklist. And Brent, I'm going to quote you. If you disagree with what you previously said, I will happily retract it. One of the items of the air sealing checklist states that there must be a continuous air barrier along the rim joist. And really the only way to accomplish that is with spray foam. So if you're not spray foaming your rim joist, you're not complying with the air sealing checklist. And I can tell you that you can get a blower door test for a smaller amount of money than you can spray foaming your rim joist. Now, I'm not necessarily saying don't do that, because from a building science point of view, I think it's a good deal actually. But if your idea is to meet your code requirements for as little money as possible, a blower door test is the better way to go. This is also a significant component to the energy models and the above code programs. Energy Star, Zero Energy Ready, Enterprise Green, Passive House. It's a huge component of Passive House certification. You ready to move on, Steve? Okay, I got the thumbs up. Energy modeling. So there are a lot of data points that go into an energy model. I say that a res check is like doing brain surgery with a machete. It is a blunt instrument, and it captures a few data points. The energy modeling that we do for a HERS score, that we do for the utility programs, that we do for the above code programs, is a much more detailed look at the energy use in a home. So we look at orientation, we look at the window efficiencies, the U factor, the solar heat gain coefficients, how many square feet of window there is in each wall facing each direction, the insulation levels in all the walls, the ceiling, the floors, distinctions between above grade, below grade walls. The energy models look at all of your space heating equipment, space cooling equipment, water heating efficiencies, the lighting efficiencies, all of your appliance, all of those efficiencies, and the air infiltration, duct leakage, all of those are considered, and how they all interact with one another. The software does a very good job of giving you a HERS index. It also will, there are a number of reports that you can output from that software that will give you an estimate of the dollars you will spend for heating and cooling, the dollars you will spend for appliances. It breaks it all out with fantastic reports that you can use to estimate energy use in therms, kilowatt hours, and dollars for the home. It also is a great way to, and Garbett really did a great job of this in years past, Garbett would consult with their HERS rater. Bruce did this a lot, where he'd say, I'm thinking about making this change in my homes, whether it was added insulation or a new piece of equipment. And he'd reach out to his HERS rater and say, what's this going to do to my HERS score if I upgrade to a 15 SEER air conditioner, as an example? And the HERS rater would come back and say, well, Bruce, it's going to do this. It's going to lower your electric use or your electric bills by $72 a year, and it's going to drop your HERS score 1 point. And then Bruce has got that data point. He understands how making that change in his home is going to affect that home's performance. And then he's going to calculate that against the increased cost of going to a more efficient piece of equipment, and he can make an informed decision. And as HERS raters, we're always happy to do that for you. Once the model is put together, it's not a big ask for us to give you information on how making these changes to your homes are going to affect their performance. So really gives you Because when you're trying to decide, without this information, when you're trying to decide how to perhaps change the efficiencies of your homes, you're really only looking at one side of the coin, and that's how much more is it going to cost me, not how much is my benefit going to be. So things beyond what we've talked about a little bit here today, and this is in multifamily, HUD 221 D4 financing. There are financing advantages to having a building that is designed to meet specific energy efficiency thresholds, and it can add up for big projects to hundreds of thousands of dollars in financing cost savings. So post-construction energy monitoring, some of the HUD programs also require energy performance validation for X number of years after the building goes into service, and HERS raters can help you out with that. 45L, that is a tax credit program through the federal government. If your homes meet a specific energy efficiency threshold, you're eligible for up to $2,000 tax credit. That was recently renewed through the federal government. If you don't even know if your homes qualify for that, it's worth your time to find out, and a HERS rater can help you out with that. I already mentioned Energy Star, Enterprise Green, LEED, Zero Energy Ready. Typically, Energy Star requires a HERS certification, which is a really big deal. It takes a lot of training, and you have to pass really rigorous tests, and you have to maintain your certification through continuing education hours. The other programs typically just require you to be a HERS rater and then get an additional certification for those other ones, which is typically less rigorous. So if you want to do LEED or Zero Energy Ready, your HERS rater doesn't have that certification, it's probably not a big deal for them to get it, but it is a big deal if the person doing that for you is not HERS rater certified. So, as I started off with, we know these programs very well. If I had to take a quick look, I would say 10, 20, 40 plus years of experience with utility incentive programs in the room right now. I used to work for the programs. Some of my handiwork is still, I designed the programs for a while. We know them well. Questions you have, you can certainly go to Mark and the folks at the programs, but the HERS raters are going to be able to help you out just as much. I like the idea of being able to work with one company that is going to be able to go in and help you with your code compliance. We'll do your res checks as well. We don't do too many of those, quite honestly. They're not that difficult. If you want us to do them, we can help you out with them. There are other paths to compliance, but as the code is now written, res check is still a quick and easy way to get your code compliance taken care of. Your energy code work, we can take care of that. And then your rebate programs all wrapped into one. It is a really cost-effective solution to getting your code and your utility rebates taken care of in with one organization. And there are other ways to get your blower door testing and duct blaster testing done. In the end, it's going to cost you more, actually, because you're not going to be able to utilize, you're not going to have the same work count for your code compliance and your utility rebates at the same time. And that's the big advantage of doing these things. Not to mention the advantage of participating in the above code programs, if those are something that you value and works well for your company. Mitch.
The way I like to say it is an energy rater is the one
trade you will work with where we bring you more money than you pay us. So if you're not using
Yes.
one, you're somebody.
Mitch said, we are the one trade that you work with that we will bring you more money than you pay us. And it's true. Yes, Steve Thon.
Damien would also like to throw something in about what they actually do with the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, another kind of thing we're rolling out this year with our Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Homes is we're working with our energy raters to prepare net zero packages for our buyers. If they're interested in making that net zero step or near net zero step, we can tell them with the energy modeling they produce what it would require for them to get to that point. So it's kind of a nice new thing we're rolling out. And
Yeah.
We know where you're going.
Yeah. So Damian Moore with Garbett Homes just stated one thing they're doing. They build DOE Zero Energy Ready homes with their HERS rater Provident Energy, and one thing they're rolling out in 2020 is their Zero Energy Ready home packages, and it's information on how efficient their home currently is, and basically how much solar they would need to put on that home for that home to be net zero. So you get one of their homes, they give you the data on how close you are to being net zero with that program. That's really cool. Are we? You never want to be the person that's standing between a room and food. Yeah, we'll come back and I'll wrap up in a little bit, but let's get lunch.
Thanks, Troy. We'll be back in 10 minutes after the break.
Welcome back. I am Troy Preslar with Building Science West Survey and Testing Services. We're just continuing on with the discussion we were having before lunch. And I don't remember how much through this slide we made it. I think we did make it through this slide. If we are having, it makes perfect sense to me to combine different tasks in the building process where it makes sense. And I believe that having one company do your diagnostic testing, your energy modeling, and your energy rebates, having that all under one roof makes sense, because you were able to, you should be getting the testing done for code, and once you've paid to have someone do that, that money ought to benefit you through the utility incentives programs and above code programs. A couple of things I wanted to, that I've got notes on that I wanted to clarify, because they don't make sense. So, I mentioned earlier that the air changes per hour are allowed by code are different for single family versus multifamily. The definition for code for single family versus multifamily is single family is a single family detached home. For code, you jump into multifamily as soon as you have a duplex. So townhomes, any attached housing apartments for that particular code point are considered multifamily, and I will look to Brent to make sure I'm speaking correctly. Anything attached is considered multifamily with regards to that point of code?
Kind of.
Kind of is what Brent says.
In fact, I'll talk about that.
Okay, sounds good. Brent will dial in on that when he's up here in a few minutes. When it comes to utility incentive programs, the definition is different. 1, 2, and 3 plexes are considered single family. When you move to 4 plexes or greater, that's when you move to multifamily. And the incentive structures change as soon as you hit 4-plex. So if you're building, and unfortunately this isn't theoretical, we're dealing with this right now on multiple projects. If you've got a project with 20 buildings and 10 of them are 3 plexes and 10 are 4 plexes, Those half fall under one program, half fall under another program. Mark Eldrige earlier spoke about receiving rebates from incentives from Rocky Mountain Power for 15 SEER or greater air conditioners, and those go up with the higher efficiency. There are larger rebates. Mark alluded to this. I just want to clarify, and if I misspeak, I'm sure Mark will let me know. That incentive is based on the AHRI rating of that system and not the badged efficiency of the outdoor unit. So if you've got a Lennox 13 ACH, whatever outdoor unit, that outdoor unit is rated at 13 SEER. But if there are three components to an air conditioner. You've got your furnace or air handler, which is moving the air for you. You got your coil, which is your indoor unit, and your condenser, which is your outdoor unit. The way those three pieces of equipment interact with one another is what determines the efficiency of your air conditioner. And there is a website, an organization called AHRI, and you put in the models of those three pieces of equipment, and it will return to you the efficiency of that air conditioner. It is possible to have an air conditioning system reach 15 SEER with a 13 SEER outdoor unit. So it is certainly worth your time to find out what efficiency levels you're hitting. You could be leaving money on the table if you're not at least checking into it. Maybe you're not, but you might be. And I know that one of the components that affects the efficiency of an air conditioner is the efficiency of the air handler. And as Mark said earlier, those are all now by federal statute required to have ECMs in them. And so that's already going to bump up the efficiency in those. So also, I'm just going to, and maybe I shouldn't do this without a chart, but I guess I'm going to try. The different programs, there are standalone and there are performance rebates and incentives from the utilities. In the past, the two utilities have gone at it differently. And so I want to make sure while I've got all the smart people here in the room that we can get this clarified. With Rocky Mountain Power, single family, so 1, 2, and 3 plexes, you can either do a standalone measure, which would be a high efficiency air conditioner, or you can do HERS. Okay, you got to choose between those two. When we are doing this work for our builders, we will just look at we'll collect data on all their equipment, and we will see how much money in rebates is available for that equipment. And then we will also look at their HERS score, and we will see which amount of money is larger, and we will apply for that one. And the program's okay with that. That's just how it works. It makes sense. Typically, the HERS score rebate is larger unless the home has multiple HVAC systems. Then sometimes that one's larger. Okay. With Dominion Energy, I guess they have changed now, so they are the same. In the past, you could do a HERS score and a furnace combined. They have changed that for 2020, so now they are the same as Rocky Mountain Power in your either performance or you are equipment or prescriptive. Now, with that said, and I'll look to Mark, thermostats are available with a HERS index rebate.
Correct.
Okay. So with the air conditioner, it's either or. Thermostats always going to be eligible. And one thing, as we have reached out to our builders to see what thermostats they are installing in their homes, you're already paying for a thermostat. And so the question isn't, the question is how much more is a qualifying thermostat versus the one I'm already installing? Oftentimes that difference is pretty small. There are about 40 or 50 eligible thermostats for Rocky Mountain Power. And we have found that many of the thermostats people are using are just one step below a qualifying thermostat. And in many cases, they've already been using qualifying thermostats. You can go back to August 15th to look for homes. If you've been installing qualifying thermostats, any home that closed August 15th or later is eligible for that. So if you haven't been getting them, look into it. It's certainly worth your time to find out if you got money on the table, and if you don't know what you're doing now as far as whether that qualifies, talk to your HVAC contractor, get that qualified list off the Rocky Mountain Power website, and find out how much it is to upgrade to a qualifying thermostat. In some cases, the Dominion list is much smaller than the Rocky Mountain Power list, but if you qualify for a Dominion, you will definitely qualify for the Rocky Mountain Power, and you can collect, if it's eligible, for both of those. And I want to say that there are certain models of Ecobee and Nest qualify for both of them. There might be one Honeywell that qualifies, but it's a much smaller list that qualifies for both. Okay. One other thing, Rocky Mountain Power's multifamily program is a pay-for-performance program. Once you hit fourplexes and greater, it really jumps into that same program that Chris described for Dominion Energy, where the program actually provides the baseline home for us, and then we compare it to your as-built. And so if you're building multifamily, it's going to be pay for performance on the Rocky Mountain Power side, and it's really simple that way. That's the only thing you have available is pay for performance. There are no prescriptive measures, so you need to do energy modeling to be eligible for any Rocky Mountain Power project that is fourplex or greater. Now, the Dominion's coming that way. You'll be able to combine those two for multifamily. So, I think that was it. That was my last slide. Any questions specifically for me? I think Brent's going to come up, and there'll probably be a lot of Q&A available then. But look at that. Everyone's so engaged. Okay.
I can't either.
Thank you. And next we'll have Brent Ursenbach with a few questions and answers. Feel free to chime in. And
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. You guys got a break from me for a little bit today, but it's good to be here, and it's great to hear about the rebates. I think it might be, I made a ton of notes while everybody was talking, and it's not very organized, so this might be all over the board. But please, if you have a comment or a question, raise your hand. Let's get it out and let's have the discussion. A lot of you know where I come from. I was an HVAC contractor, and I did HVAC from 1972 to 2005. So that was 33 years that I was involved in HVAC. Then in 2005, I decided, for lots of reasons we won't go into here, that I needed a change, and I became a building inspector. And as I became a building inspector, and having been one of those few HVAC contractors that did load calculations all the time, and we've heard lots of talk about load calculations, I understood a building thermal envelope. I knew what made a building use energy, waste energy, because I was putting in the systems to try to make it comfortable. And so it just kind of turned into, I ended up being the guy that taught energy code classes, and it's really kind of ballooned, and someone just said, I can't believe you're still doing this. And I can't believe I'm still doing it either. But I am, and I'm going to do it for a while longer. I'm almost 68 years old, and I'll probably do it till I'm 80. My dad's 96 and still kicking, so I got good genes. But with that, I've been called, oh, you're the guy that just demands energy code. No, I don't demand energy code. I understand why we have an energy code and the importance of the energy code. And everything that's been said today, I see the purpose for it. So I want to talk just really quickly about a couple of things. This energy code guide, and many of you have seen it, it's on the website, utahenergycode.com. You can go on there, you can print them, it's all available. And this is a residential energy code guide. And anything in red is amended. With that being said, we've heard a lot about some great rebates. And the rebates are paid, and correct me if I misspeak, the rebates are paid because you as builders or whatever, developers, do something that's above the code requirement. I think that's a safe way to discuss it, isn't it? And so every time the code changes, guess what? Your rebates are going to change because they're not going to pay you to comply with the code. Safe heads are nodding. And so, yeah, the rebates are always changing, but the code is always changing. Now let's throw in there, Troy mentioned, and I know we have builders in here, Troy mentioned that you are responsible to build according to code. And in fact, we did a class last February, a year ago almost, and discussed that. And I just want to briefly repeat what I said there. As a code official, if they're the building inspectors and plans examiners that are in here, you have by state statute a responsibility to enforce the code. If you don't do it, you may be guilty of unprofessional conduct. As a builder, as a licensed contractor, you have a similar or a like responsibility to build according to code. It says nowhere in state statute that you have to enforce the code or build according to code if the building inspector requires you to. Doesn't say that. It says you're to build in accordance with the adopted codes. And then our state legislature amended the heck out of our code, and that's why we have a bunch of red stuff on here. And if we did not have amendments, every home built in Utah, and this is going to segue into the what's multifamily and what's a home. But if we did not have state amendments, every home would be blower door tested. There wouldn't be a choice. We'd do the checklist and we'd blower door test. And it would have to be a tighter house, and your ducts would have to be tighter too. So all of these things really benefit who? They benefit the people that live in that house for the next 100 years or 150 years. So if we build the house right, and if utilities want to pay you an incentive to build it better, there's a long-term effect to that. This discussion that we only spend money on things in our house that have a payback of 5 years or 6 years or 7 years is really kind of silly. So you save enough to pay for it all at that period of time. Then after that, it's savings for as long as the building's in existence. So what's a multifamily home? This is by far one of the most confusing things we have in front of us right now. By code, the International Residential Code says a single family, well, the International Residential Code is written for 1 and 2 family dwellings. If it's a duplex, we build it out of the residential code. But when we get to the energy code, the code says, well, if you build a 3-plex or a 4-plex or 5 or 12 or whatever, as long as it's 3 stories or less, it's still residential. And then we get into what the state legislature did with townhomes and multifamily this past year. We do have with our multifamily, and when I say multifamily right now, I'm talking about anything that's more than 1 unit in a building. When we get into multifamily and we have a common wall or a party wall, guess what we do? We don't do the ceiling on that firewall that we do on the outside. We don't wrap Tyvek on that, do we? So we have, when we blower door test, we have a lot of leakage between units. And that's why, quote, multifamily units leak more. Do I have that right, Steve? You know, that's why they leak more. And we can say, well, they're not leaking to outside, and I agree with that, but they are leaking odors and everything else. But for that reason, the way the state, the legislature wrote it, we are now calling multifamily anything that, it could be townhouses, it could be apartments, it could be anything that has multiple units. When the code really, what does the code consider a townhouse? A townhouse if you have a townhouse building that's 12 units long, it is 12 single family dwellings with 0 lot line. It isn't a multifamily building. The state legislature is calling it a multifamily building and saying that you don't have to meet the 3.5 air changes per hour. You only have to meet 5 air changes per hour because it's allowing leakage between units. Kind of confusing, isn't it? It really is. But so for any single family dwelling, a standalone home, the blower door test is 3.5 air changes per hour at 50 pascals. And simply what we're doing is we are identifying leakage in the house by elevating the pressure. Just like, you know, if you have I can almost guarantee a half a dozen or a dozen of us in this room right now, if you go home to your wheelbarrow out in the backyard, it might not look like it has a flat tire, but if you put any weight on it, it has a flat tire, right? And it's going to go flat. Can you find the leak in that tire without putting extra pressure in it? You don't see the leak, but you elevate the pressure, then you can see it and you can find it. And that's what these gentlemen and Paulette left and the young lady back there do is they find the leaks by pressure testing. So I am not what you call, and by the way, I'm not an inspector anymore. I work for WC3. I do third-party plan review, and I teach these classes for the Office of Energy Development and the utilities and everything. I wanted to touch real quick, and like I say, this is just notes I made. There's been a little discussion on ECM motors, electronically commutated motors, and SEER ratings. And you may be familiar, if you go to your energy code, you'll have EERs and SEERs. And the residential products generally are rated with SEER ratings, seasonal energy efficiency ratios. And what it is BTUs of cooling per kilowatt of electricity. And the difference between a SEER and an EER is the SEER looks at the indoor fan, the evaporator fan, the indoor blower. And so the gentlemen that have spoke before are exactly right. And in fact, it really bothered me as an HVAC contractor because I would go out and quote a 15 SEER air conditioner and I would match it up with a proper coil, time delay if I needed to, proper motor inside on the furnace, so that we truly got 15 SEER. But you could buy a 15 SEER air conditioner and you could put a cheaper, smaller coil on it, a restrictive line set, a crappy furnace inside, and it'll only give you 13.5 and you paid for a 15. And so it's very important that you understand the proper application, and you said these very things, of the air handler, motor, and blower system, the evap coil that sits on top of that, or under, whichever the configuration, and the outdoor unit is all critical. And I could go on for the next hour and talk about how critical it is to put a duct system on it so the whole thing will work. But that is, you can build the best system and put the best equipment and put a crappy duct system, and it's going to be an 8 SEER. So it's worth it to spend the money to get a proper system. Any questions? Steve,
Comment, Brent? Do you
please.
think that as a builder, they should ask for an HARI rating on the system?
The question is, should you ask for the HARI printout on the system? I don't think it would be a bad idea. They really should be doing that. The challenge is, excuse me, the challenge is some are trying to make, they're trying to save a few bucks and they're buying an aftermarket coil. They're not buying a train condensing unit and a train coil. They're buying a train condensing unit and an ADP coil or someone else's coil. And you don't, you know, the Rating Institute doesn't have all the data on every single coil, so it's kind of hard to come up with them. If it's not a bad thing to ask for, and it's not a bad thing either to ask for specifications on the coil. It's very important that you have a right coil, and a lot of these third-party coils are small and they have a huge amount of pressure drop across the coil. And so if you can't get airflow, you don't get all the BTUs of sensible cooling, and so your unit doesn't perform the way it's supposed to. But so in short, yeah, the question is, you should get something, either manufacturer's data, because the manufacturer will put out a chart that says, this condensing unit with this air handler, with this coil, and maybe even a time delay that keeps the fan running, you know, for a few minutes so you get the last little bit of cooling out of it. With all these components, we'll give you this SEER rating. And I think the manufacturer's data, expanded data like that is okay too. But you can't get the HARI report printed out. You can go right to their website and print it out. Great question. Okay, I'm gonna bring something up, but I'm a little hesitant that we have things that have come into the market for years and years and years, and I'm gonna call them, well, they're sexy, or they are appealing, or it's gonna be the solution. How many times have you seen an advertisement that this is the thing you need to buy and you're going to save huge amounts of energy? We've seen lots of stuff, haven't we? I mean, I remember 30 years ago, we had coming through and people were multi-level marketing bubble foil. You know what I mean? You roll this out a little bit in your attic and you're going to save 50%. I get an ad mailed to me a couple of times a month in the summer, and I'm not saying whole house fans are bad, but I'm getting these glossy brochures that say that if you put in this fan, you turn on at night, open your windows a little bit, and you pay rebates for them, that you're going to save 75% on your cooling. Well, yeah. Legitimate products with exaggerated claims. And whatever the product is, it needs to be installed per the manufacturer's instructions, and it also needs to be installed given a little bit of thought. And the one thing that I'm a little hesitant to bring up, but I'm going to bring it up because I've had 3 or 4 phone calls on it already, is heat pump water heaters. Great idea. Really good idea. What's a heat pump? A heat pump takes heat. As we look at an air-to-air heat pump, if we were using a heat pump to heat this building, we'd take heat from outside where it's cooler, right? And bring it into our building. How does a heat pump water heater work? It takes heat out of the surrounding air that's around the water heater and puts it into your water. So if you put the heat pump water heater in your basement, where's it getting its heat? It's getting it out of your basement. And what's it going to do to your basement? In the summertime, it's going to remove excess heat, if your basement even has excess heat. In the wintertime, what's it going to do? It's going to cool your basement, right? And so how do we overcome that? We put some more heat into our house. We burn some gas so we can put the heat in. So all I'm saying is heat pump water heaters have a place, but they generally don't belong inside our house in our climate. They're great in your house in Florida because you always want to remove humidity. You're always wanting to cool the house almost. Most of those places, the place I see them being installed is out in garages because they're going to work really good in a garage, especially in the summer when there's lots of heat available for them to bring from the surrounding ambient air and put it into the water heater. Not saying they're bad, I'm not, because they produce a BTU of heat into your hot water at even a half or third the cost of straight resistance heat. And there's a good reason that you pay a rebate on them. Troy?
I've seen them, typically the manufacturer will say you need 100 cubic feet of ambient air for this to function. What we've seen locally, and we're starting to see a lot more of these go in, is they're being installed inside, but they're actually ducting them. So there's fans on the heat pump itself where you can attach a little duct and a fan, and so it kind of disconnects the water heater from the conditioned space, which is a double-edged sword, I think. It's awesome for the summertime.
You know what?
Oh, sorry.
I can just hand that to you.
Yeah.
And start over.
Yeah. So what we're seeing, should I go up front?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you probably have something to add to the other stuff I'm saying.
Yeah, so what we're seeing with the heat pump water heaters is oftentimes they're installed in smaller areas, but they're being ducted to the outside. So they're disconnecting that. So Brandon talked about how it would cool the basement, and it does unless you just hook a duct up to the outside, which I think probably makes them work even better in the summertime because you could be drawing on as much as 100-degree air to pull the heat from. So it's probably going to bump up your summertime efficiency, but draw down your wintertime efficiency if you're trying to extract heat from 20-degree ambient air. They're probably still better than a resistance water heater, but not nearly what it could be if we were in South Florida trying to grab heat from the atmosphere and put it in your water. So.
Very good. Thank you. And that's why I believe I wanted to preface it with, we need to always be looking at manufacturer's installation instructions. You know, when we're retrofitting a system, we need to be looking at manufacturer's installation instructions. That is a very important part of the code. And you know, the 3 or 4 or 5 that I've had phone calls on, they were just freestanding and sucking the heat out of the basement and making the basement cold. And
Did they have gas heat?
Yeah.
Man, I just put a duct in, a heat duct right by it. It's probably the solution.
Well, I sometimes, and you know, the people I deal with I've dealt with over the years at Mountain Fuel, Questar, Dominion, have all been really good, and the people I've dealt with at Rocky Mountain Power, Utah Power, whatever you want to call them, have all been really good. And I've made thousands and thousands of dollars on utility rebates as an HVAC contractor. Just a lot of money on that. And they're just trying to help you out. They really are. I mean, my most recent rebate, I put in a 98 iron tankless water heater, and I think I got $300 or something like that back on it. And it was pretty sweet. Other notes I made here. Troy mentioned res check. And I think it might help just so that we clarify a little bit on res check. Res check is, well, let me back up. The code tells us we can, the energy code, and it's right on this little sheet, first section, compliance options, and it says we can follow a prescriptive table, or we can do a res check, or we can do a model, or we can use the Utah 2012 res check, which gives you a loophole, and you build a less efficient building with using that res check than the other methods, or you can do an ERI, a HERS rating. So you comply with any one of those. The first two, prescriptive table and res check, as Troy mentioned, don't give you any credit for other things that you might do, including air sealing. They don't give you credit for high efficiency equipment. They don't give you credit for better windows. Well, they do give you a little bit of credit, but they don't give you credit for the solar heat gain coefficient on your windows. And there's a lot of things they don't give you credit for. If you're working in a jurisdiction and they tell you you have to do a res check, they're wrong. You don't have to do a res check. A res check simply looks at the envelope and how you insulate it. What type of windows you put in, what type of insulation you put in. It doesn't look at any of your air sealing. It doesn't even look at where your ductwork is. It doesn't look at duct insulation. It looks at none of it. And so it isn't I can't remember the term you use, but it's a
Brain surgery with a machete.
brain surgery with a machete, or yeah, but it's simple. And it is simple. And I don't think we should take it out of the code. I think it has its place. Duct blaster, I want to just talk just briefly for just a minute. If you have ducts in attics, if you're building a home with ducts in the attic, you're wasting a lot of energy, even if you insulate it and seal it correctly. Absolutely, without question. Many of you heard me talk about spending time in St. George and teaching Manual J load calculation classes down there. And this is nationally in warm climates, typical heat gain with systems in attics is between 35 and 50% of your total load, which means between 35 and 50% of your electrical cost is to overcome the heat that you're gaining into your ductwork out of the attic. So if you have a $400 power bill in your St. George home, it might be $200 of it you are just throwing away every single month because you have your ducts up there rather than have them inside the thermal envelope. You can insulate them real good and improve it. You can make them really airtight, but you're going to drop it down into maybe the 20 or 25% is what you're throwing away. If you have, what do you test to, 7 CFM
Yes.
per 100 square feet? Let's think about that a little bit. And you're testing at 25 pascals, not 50 pascals.
Yes.
which is similar to the pressures that the duct system operates at, pretty close. So if you have 7 CFM per 100 square feet and you have a 2,000 square foot house, that's 140 CFM that you throw away for every minute, whenever the system's running. And you just spent money to heat and cool it. So that's an exhaust fan that isn't just exhausting 70 degree out of inside. You're exhausting either 55 degree air in the summertime that you never even got any benefit out of, or 120 degree off your furnace that you're exhausting to outside before you got any benefit from it. And I had one last item. The code, without question, we've seen the energy code go through an evolution where it goes from insulate, insulate, insulate. Well, guess what? Our infiltration, our air leakage had become, which was around a third to half our load, was becoming a bigger portion of our load if we didn't do air sealing. So we're insulating and we're air sealing, and the building science of it says we have to take care of the moisture, we have to take care of air quality. So whether the code makes you do it, you should be doing some type of mechanical ventilation. And by the way, if the code was not amended in Utah, remember I said we'd blower door test everything, we would also mechanically ventilate everything. Because without amendments, we have to tighten our house up to 3 air changes per hour with the blower door test. And the trigger in the code is when you're tighter than 5 air changes per hour, you have to mechanically ventilate. So a word of caution, if you're building a tighter house, you really need to be thinking about your ventilation so you don't have the moisture issues and the air quality issues and everything else. Any questions? I'm gonna,
I have a question.
please.
So a lot of these, like for instance, the 2012 Utah Rest Check, the blower door and the duct blaster there, we have things that start on, like for instance, duct leakage 6% per 100 square feet, starting January 1st, 2021. Are they going to reevaluate those in 2021 or after? Or is that next?
Okay, that's a great question. If you look on here, if you have this, the question is, what about these changes in the code that are listed for 2021? What happened, and this will take us right to closing time here. What happened is we did not adopt the 2009 residential energy code in Utah because it took away equipment trade-off. You couldn't put in a better furnace and get credit for it. And so when we got to the 2012, the legislature says, okay, we'll adopt the 2012 with some amendments, but we have to have a res check that allows us to trade off a high efficiency furnace and get credit for it. And so with a battle with DOE, we got that res check. And with that, the legislature put in a number of different steps, and this is one of them. We have duct leakage tightens up to 2021. Blower door testing tightens up moving forward to 2021. And this is going clear back to 2012. And really what those steps are is to take it to the 2012 level. Are they going to be revisited? Probably. I expect they are because they're going to revisit the whole thing. Are we going to, for residential in 2021, still stay with all the amendments and everything else we have? We didn't adopt the 2018 residential energy code. We adopted the 2018 commercial code, but not the residential. So I expect we're going to see some more of revisit. In fact, this past year, last year, 1 year ago, they revisited the blower door testing on multifamily. And that was a number that they tweaked based on experience. So yeah, I think we're going to see it. I would love to see that we we go to the full energy code as it is. It's a minimal code. It's not the greatest. You guys know you build way beyond the code all the time. But it just makes it really messy, and it makes it hard for jurisdictions to enforce. Steve?
Are you going to address all the res check and its lifespan?
Okay.
And then also, the newest version of Rate has added the Utah code into it.
So Steve's comment is the newest version of Rate includes the Utah amendments?
Yeah, right, because it just used to have Washington, Oregon, California, New York, like,
Okay.
Utah, just the one that just barely came out.
And then as far as, I think your other question on res check is what's going to happen when the Utah 2012 res check isn't supported? Is that's where you're, see, what's happened with res check? Res check's a free download you get from DOE. And it's supported, and it's updated, and you can do the download. Well, if you go online, and my most recent experience was on the ComCheck side of it, the commercial side, and I can't say for sure on the residential side, but you cannot do a 2018 ComCheck. Well, you can do a download, but the download is not supported on the 2018 code. What I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying it very well, is if you want to do a 2018 ComCheck, you have to do a web ComCheck. You have to do it online. DOE and ResCheck and ComCheck is trying to move away from downloads and you doing everything online. So you do it with their online version. They call it web, ResCheck, web, ComCheck. Well, if they move completely to that in 21, and they don't, you might have an old download of the 2012. If you lose it, you'd be done. If they say the only place you can do res checks and com checks is on the website. And that's where they're headed. And even if they don't go there, they quit supporting. So the 2009 res checks have dropped off or are going to drop off. Well, the next one that's going to drop off is the 2012. And we won't have the ability to even do that Utah 2012. Where we need to go, the whole purpose of the Utah 2012 res check is so you can trade off furnaces and air conditioners. Guess what? You don't have to have the Utah 2012 res check. Every one of you can trade off your equipment, not only your equipment, but your appliances and everything else in your house if you do an ERI or HERS rating. So we don't need to make friends with these guys, and you can get credit. You get credit for everything. You get credit for your light bulbs. You get credit for, don't you?
Yep.
You get credit for everything. Your refrigerator, your dishwasher, your water heater. You get credit for it all. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next month.